So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just go over to Claude Design, and I'm going to ask it to redesign this site for me. So I'm going to call this um, Chris Personal Site. And I'm going to do a high fidelity mockup because I have something that is high fidelity, and I just want to make it better and high fidelity. And most importantly, I want to end up with something that I can feed back into Claude Code to have it make the actual changes to my site design. Now, an important thing here is this is going to be useful for you if your site is built somewhere where you can modify the actual HTML, CSS, and JavaScript of it. If it's built in something like Wix or something like that, where you can't get the actual code of the site, you're not going to be able to follow this exactly. But I do think you're going to be able to like make tweaks to it to get a result that you're pretty stoked about. So
I think it also indicates like a big shift for small businesses where like sites like Wix and Squarespace made a lot of sense because it was like, I don't need to know how to code, but they're super restrictive in what you can do. Not to mention, like when you leave, you don't take your site with you. Like you can't. So this I think this represents like a big shift where like you can do so much more without having to know how to code.
Yeah.
And maybe is another reason not to be on there.
And I just realized that I wasn't sharing the right tab. So I'm in Claude Design right now. I'm just going to call this Chris Personal Speaking Site. And just to show you something kind of cool, I'm going to say don't use a design system. What design systems in Claude is they are collections of design tokens, things like colors and scale and all sorts of different stuff that Claude knows about your brand, so it creates stuff consistently and that is consistently good looking and on brand. But for the purpose of this experiment, I'm going to do it without any design system because I want it to tear up the site and rebuild it if it wants to.
Right?
Yeah. So I'm going to call this one Chris Speaking Page. We'll hit create. And now what I'm going to start with is I'm going to take a screenshot. You don't need to do this, but I'm going to take a screenshot of this page. So this is me taking a screenshot of it. I'm going to scroll it so I can get the whole page because I want it to know my whole page. You could also just like save out your page as a PDF or however you want to get an image of the page. I think this has been the most successful process for me is to start with a screenshot. So I'll save that out. It's going to take just a sec. I got to let it do its screenshot saving this. You can also just point it at your website and design, but this is just me being a little bit, I don't know. This process works for me, so I'm sharing what works for me. So now in Claude Design, I'm going to grab that screenshot and I'm going to, I'm going to drop it in the chat, attach it to that chat. So it's there. And I'm going to say, I want you to redesign my personal speaking site. Make it interesting and curiosity inducing, so people want me to speak at their event or sign up for my newsletter. And I'm going to give it a really vague prompt. That's it. I'm going to hit send. And now what I expected to do is look at this, ingest it, and then come up with a bunch of questions for me. That's one of the coolest things about Claude Design, very much like Claude Code, is it understands what I'm asking, and then it comes back with clarifying questions because it wants to give me the most valuable possible outcome, the most accurate possible outcome. So it asks me a bunch of questions, and I'll say, here I am going to say, refer to my current website for the answer to this. Refer to my current website. I don't know, you come up with my curiosity hook. This has been like my biggest thing I've been sharing in every demo is you don't have to answer all of these things. A really neat thing about Claude Design is if I were to have walked away, and it popped up these questions. After a certain amount of time, it's not just going to wait here forever and hope that I respond. After, I don't know how long it is, it's just going to say like, well, I guess I don't have the answers. I'm going to make my best guess, and it'll take its first pass. It's not going to be as personal and accurate as if I had answered all these questions, but don't feel like you have to answer all of them. Just give the direction that you feel like you have the answer to. Who books me? Tech and startup conferences, creative and design industry stuff, proof points and credits, lots of social proof and testimonials, tweets, etc. on my website. I'm not even going to bother answering the newsletter pitch. What's the number one goal of the page? Let's say my goal is book me to speak, just because I don't know what that's going to end up looking like. Edit or aesthetic direction, just decide for me. How many design directions? This is really cool. I'm going to ask for 2 variations. Let's do that and see how it changes. And then what should be tweakable? Decide for me. What media do you have? I have videos. I have social proof. Great. Which sections do you want? Decide for me. Whatever. Go forth. Claude Design. So now it's going to do the actual work of design. And this is going to take a little time. But while we're doing this, and you can see it's built out like a section of to-dos that it's going to do. Hopefully you can see that. It's going to lock in the aesthetic, build the first direction focused on an editorial, curiosity-led approach, build a second direction focused on being bold and playful, then actually create the canvas and verify. And then it'll be time for us to review. So it's going to go through all that. While we're waiting on this, let's talk a little bit more about design systems. So I didn't use a design system, at least I hope I didn't. But let's go ahead and create a new one. So I'm in Claude Design. I've clicked on design systems, and now I'm going to hit create. And here we're going to, or there are a bunch of different ways that you can create a design system. So if you have code in a GitHub repository, you can just add that. That's a really great way for it to like look at your actual code base and break it down. You can drag in code from a local file if you want to. And that's what I'm actually going to do. You can upload a Figma file, or you can add your logos and fonts. When I generated one when I was playing around with the site for the Shift, I just dropped in the Shift logo, and it did a fantastic job. But I'm actually, I was going to drop code in here, but instead, I'm going to see if it can pull it from my actual website. I'll say like, base this design system off of bang. And then we'll hit generate. So that's doing its thing, generating over here now. It's going to build out a similar checklist, which is really cool to see the way that these things think about the tasks that you give them. And I don't know if you ever do this, Jesse, but I 100% learn and improve my my prompts based on the to-dos. So once you start to use these tools and like you learn how, generally speaking, they talk about what they're doing, it makes it way easier for us to write better prompts that like kind of speak the language of these models.
Yeah, and I just absolutely. I think it's informative. It's not just like reassuring to see that how thorough it's being or something like that, but it really helps you understand how it's working so that you can help it work better and adjust your process. I also love that you're showing how to build this design system. We were actually chatting about it before the show a little bit. And it's like, even just the term design system, I think can be intimidating. It's like, oh, that is going to require like a lot of knowledge and time when I hear the word system. But like we were talking about, you may think I don't have a design system or I don't have the information for a design system, but you've got a logo or you've got a website with like typography and colors and elements that you like right now. It can learn from those things. You don't need to really be able to give it all the specifics or answers. And because you build that design system, you're going to be able to then get consistent results each time you come back and use it.
Yeah.
So like don't let design system. I wish it was just like brand style, or yeah. I mean, I understand that it really is a design system, but it just sounds so ominous.
Yeah, I get that feeling too. Like when I talk about design system with anybody who's not playing with these tools, it does feel so much bigger than what it is. But like this little, pretty simple to set up thing makes your design so much better. So now that we have like the Shift design system, we can create all sorts of stuff that just fits the Shift really easily, and we don't have to worry about retelling it what to do every time.
And we showed that you played around on one episode and built the design system for the Shift. I used that same design system to then update the page, and
that's awesome.
It was consistent because it understood how all of that stuff should work and lay out.
Yeah. And I thought I was being so clever by being like, oh, you know what? I'm not even going to have prepped versions of these. We can just do it completely live. A good lesson for me is like, just do prepped versions as well. But a neat thing about this is, again, I just gave it my existing website and was like, make the brand system from this. And it seems like it's likely going to do a pretty good job because it's telling, it obviously figured out who I am. It's calling out information about my, like, this is a funny way to describe me: experimental, playful, strange, and wonderful newsletter maker. I'll take that as a compliment this time.
You're like that friend in chat earlier.
yeah, exactly. I just can't catch a break. Hand-drawn illustrations are core. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And knowing you, that's accurate.
It called out my newsletters and email things that I've created. I'm really interested to see what this comes up with as the design system. But let's see if it made any progress on the actual site. And it looks like it did.
Wow.
Okay. That is pretty darn
very editorial style.
Yeah. So it gave me two versions. And let me remind you of what the original version looked like. So this was the original version. And then these are my two potential approaches. So I have this one. Yeah, this is the editorial one.
Yeah.
It calls out the different talks that I've done. This is excellent.
Hilarious dramatic readings. I love that.
Yeah. And then it breaks out like a list of recent or of my speaking engagements. And then this, okay, I don't know which one I like better.
I think this still has a bit of that editorial style, but a little bit more personality.
Yeah.
I kind of like that it didn't try to completely reinvent it. There's still elements in there that feel like the first version.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see too, because you did this. So it's really learning primarily from the prompts that you gave or the responses that you gave it to the questions that it asked at like intake. I'm really curious to see a version with the design system that it learned, that it trained from your existing site.
Yeah, interesting.
Even just like that stuff that you were saying where it's like, you know, it recognized that hand-drawn illustration was core to it. Like obviously these versions didn't get that information because they didn't have a design system and they weren't asking for it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how much more like maybe on personality or something the other one would be.
Yeah, this is very cool though. So just for the purpose of like playing around and keeping on moving this forward, I'm gonna go forward with version B. And now this section of it, I'm gonna try and switch my screen shares in just a second. So, actually, I'm gonna just take. I'm gonna click on share, and then down here, I'm gonna hand off to Claude Code. This is like the coolest value proposition of using Claude Design in my mind. Is it creates a this artifact is something that Claude Code can use directly. And if I was using Claude Code Web, you can just push this button and it'll open and start things out in Claude Code Web, which I've used for other personal sites in the past. It's pretty cool. But for now, I'm going to use it locally in my Claude Code that I'm using in VS Code. So I'm going to copy this command. And now I'm going to try and switch my shared screen. So let's see if this works. All right, cool. So I'm in VS Code right now. And I'm going to say...
it all without losing...
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry. There we go. That's better.
Yeah. And this is my little Claude Code window panel from the Claude Code plugin in VS Code. But if you're using Cursor or if you're using Claude Code in the Claude desktop app, you can do the same thing. This is just where I'm using it for me. But what this prompt from Claude Code says is fetch the design file, read its README, and implement the relevant aspects of its design. I need to give it some more specifics because I want it to implement version B. So I'm going to say implement version B. This is something we talk about a lot, is the more vague you are with your prompts, the more creativity and variance you should expect from what gets created for you.
Well, yeah, the more guesses it's going to make.
Yeah.
They might not be the right guesses.
Yeah. So I'm going to say implement version B, and I'll say actually, you know what? That's all I'm going to do. Let's try this. So here we go. And this is going to take a little while. I'm not going to make you just watch my Claude Code window, but this is going to go through actually making changes to my code. Oh, shoot. I just stretched it out. I was trying to move it and got too clever for my own good. There we go. So I'm not going to make you watch this, though. Instead, let's go back in and see if it put together a design system for me. Okay. So this is what I got. This is interesting because this is not really what I would have expected from this website. Why is it getting cut off like that? Do you see the screen share cut off on your screen, Jesse?
Oh. I do. It just got wider.
Okay, but you know what? Let's just keep working through this. So it has created its first review, and one of the neatest things about this is it presents this element for me now to step-by-step walk through and either confirm or improve whatever it's suggested. So I'm going to say, this needs work. And then the cool thing about this is I can give it direction on what it might do differently. So I'll say the background should be white. Primary color is purple, and accents should feel harmonious with that. So I'll submit that. And now it's like redesigning for me. These marker accents are, so it's created like a mock-up of what it would make my personal homepage look like. So these marker accents are like these things.
Yeah.
And yeah, for the heck of it.
It definitely derived a lot more playful personality using your site than the versions that didn't have that as a source.
Yes. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So we'll say looks good. Just so we can get through some of these. Let's get past the colors. Oh, now that is very cool.
Chris setting aside his designer background and just saying, this will have to do.
Yeah. But I mean, it works. It works.
Yeah.
So now my typography, I really like this. It's showing me what the display, which is like the headers and the big fonts are. So that looks good. Now this marker. One of the really cool things about this that is so remarkable, if you're not really normally a technical person, is that it's not just pulling from a set of values that it understands, or it doesn't seem to be, because it's not just like header text, body text, whatever. It's created these contextual type styles. So marker style is like something that it's using here in very specific cases, like on these notes and stuff. And it's presented that as a element for me to review. And it's gotten even more specific in that it's calling out these things like eyebrows. Eyebrows are text, like little text that sits above a heading or another section. It's giving me all that to review. Yeah, that looks great. Looks good. So it's pulling me back through the colors because it changed them based on my suggestion before. So now I have something that is more white and purple. That looks fine. So here's my body font, the text scale. I'm just trying to see if there's anything particularly fun. Oh, my shadow style. So you can even have it tweak things like shadows if you want really hard styles instead of these soft, more modern styles. Buttons. I really like what it did with these buttons, creating some things that have animation and some character to them as opposed to just standard pills. Inputs looks great. Cards. Okay, I'm going to stop going. Oh, that's awesome. Highlight and underline.
That is actually pretty.
Yeah. So now that I've made some of these changes, I want it to update. Oh, that's cool too. Sorry, I just get so deep in this. I want it to update the personal site UI kit based on the changes I made. So I'm just going to say, update this based on the changes I made. We'll submit that. It's going to go do its thing, reviewing the draft design system. And in just a minute, it should give me my update. But you can also look at all of these sections individually. Like this section up here lets you walk through it step by step. But I could dive into any of these categories. So the doodle library is what I was looking at any time and make modifications to things. So that looks good. And then my avatar looks good, but come on. I wanted to say, let's see if it'll do this. Find an actual picture of me. Search for one of Chris Vasquez from AWeber. I don't know if it's going to be able to do this, but we'll give it a shot.
Find out.
So now I've gone through it. It's cleared out that top section. I've taken a look. It's only taken me a little time. Doing it. But that's where we are. And then just checking back in on Claude Code. Still just doing its thing. It finished like reviewing my code base, reviewing the Claude Design screens, and now it's told me it has everything it needs to implement. It's going to implement it in two of my files, in the index.html and the style CSS. So now it's getting to actual work. And I know this might seem long on a live stream, but when you think about it in terms of how long it would have taken you or me in the past, even just to get all of this stuff up, to open Figma and make all of my changes in Figma, go through multiple variations in Figma, make all the tweaks that I wanted to tweak, and then to take that and translate it into changes in my website, and then do all the stuff I have to do to actually save the changes to my website or push them up or deploy them. It's so much time. And because there's so much connecting dots and manually like doing things, there's a lot of context switching too, which every time you have to context switch, it's an opportunity to drop off. I know oftentimes when I'm done with one thing, I'll be like, okay, I need to take a break and I'll go do something else. And then I won't get back to what I was doing until the next day or something. This whole process, the fact that we're going to be able to do it over the course of a live stream is just, it is a remarkable time savings. And then once I have this here, like a lot of the critique that you might hear about doing a process like this is, well, you've taken all the creativity and agency out of it. And like, if I were to just do this, I could see that argument. But what it actually means is I can get it to the point where I have the major update done, and then I can spend my time and effort not on the tedium of like moving boxes in Figma or opening and navigating between files in VS Code. Instead, I can spend my time looking at the page, feeling what it actually feels like, and making tweaks based on my human taste. Like that is what the benefit. Jesse and I talk about this a lot, especially when we're talking to like young designers. I know I do this when I'm talking to young designers who are very nervous about the future of design.
Yeah.
what I tell them is like a lot of these tedium based jobs, these small task based jobs of like copy this file and modify it, or crop images or whatever, those jobs are going away,
Mhm.
which is scary, but that is the truth. So you have to think about like what do you really provide that is so valuable? And it is taste. It's
Yep.
the ability for you to look at something and tell that it feels off, or tell that it looks off, or that it doesn't communicate well.
And we're on that topic. Let's like unpack that for a second. Like I was talking with a friend's son who's just going to college and wanted to do design and is kind of like questioning that for the same reasons. I don't think it actually, those jobs where you almost, it was less about like learning how to do it and more about putting in the time and earning, your way as you climbed through your career. It wasn't like you had to prove that you could crop an image before you could do bigger work. Like you learned how to crop an image on day one, or probably taught yourself when you were 12, but you had to do that work. Those jobs may be affected by this, but it actually, I think for young designers, I think it actually allows them to kind of leapfrog to a bigger role where they can bring their design sense and taste to things in a way that they would have had to wait years to sometimes. So it kind of like we've talked about how like I think it makes you a creative director,
Yeah.
or an art director. They can kind of jump straight to that, and small business owners can be art directors because they don't have to know. Like that's the other side of this is. There are things that you can do for this site, micro interactions or little, like little polish effects and things like that, that probably would not have been available to you before.
Yeah.
And so it's that unlock as well, I think, where every single person watching this, I don't care what your background is. I know Robin, our realist broker from Rocky Point, Mexico, is here. Like, and Robin, shout out to, I forgot to mention you by name, but submitted one of the graphics after our ChatGPT Images 2.0 episode the other day. And what Robin did was played art director with ChatGPT Images 2.0 and described what she wanted and the content that she wanted and the layout that she wanted. And it produced it for her. So
Robin's here.
Yeah,
Hey,
Robin's in here.
Nice.
And so you know what I mean? It turns everybody into an art director or a designer. And I think that's just a superpower.
Awesome. So like this is, just to remind everyone, Claude Code is done implementing the changes. This is what the site looks like now, or looked like initially. Let's see how it did. Okay, that's wild. That's awesome. This is in my browser, in code, the updated site. And here you can see, let's check it out. So it's got this cool scrolling marquee. I come from the early internet days, so I love this. What does get the newsletter do? Okay, so that scrolls me down to the newsletter form, which, looking at the code, it is working as an AWeber form. But let's go back up to the top. I'm guessing these are all anchors, but let's see. Yeah, cool. So it talks about who I am, all of the font, or all of the text from the Claude Code or Claude Design, my average reply time.
Like, yo, this is under 30 minutes.
Yeah.
To build this entire site from scratch. That's I'm close to this stuff and it still blows my mind.
Yeah. This is so cool.
Oh,
It grabbed videos, dropped them in here.
One of our early webinars together.
Yeah. Here are all these quotes.
We had a question I think is worth addressing here as well. Yeah. I'll actually just throw it on here. But what are some safety measures to take to make sure you can go back to your original page if it doesn't work correctly?
This is a this is just so cool. I'm publishing these changes after this, but this is a great question because I know a lot of us are vibe coding and we don't necessarily have backgrounds in technology, but these tools allow people who are just creative and interested to build really cool experiences. You want to familiarize yourself with something called Git. Git is a technology for versioning code.
Yeah.
So if you're vibe coding locally, well, actually, there are kind of two ways to go about this. If you're using a local development environment, like you're building in Claude Design or Claude Code locally, or you're using VS Code like I'm using, or Cursor or some code editor, you want to use Git. And if you just ask Claude how to set up a Git or how to turn your local project into a Git project, it will teach you how to do that. And
step by step. And I literally had to do that for a project. I mean, I was like, I'm not actually sure how to do this, and it did it for me. So yeah, like, I am a testament that it's not too technical, I promise.
Yes. So do that. That is really cool. And then you can always, you're going to do something called committing, which is where when you make changes to files, you're going to commit them. And those commit, well, actually, you know what? Why am I telling you this? The cool thing about this, I can show you. So I'm going to switch back to my window, and I'm going to show you how this is not a Git repository yet. I'm going to show you what I would do if I didn't know how to do this and I wanted to. So I'm going to clear out this conversation, and I'm going to say, I want to make this project a Git project so I don't, so I can revert back to previous versions. I'm just going to talk to it like I was talking to a knowledgeable expert who knew how to help.
A freelancer that you've hired to do the thing that you didn't know how to do.
Yeah, and so now it's going to do these things for me. It's going to run git init, which is going to turn my project into a Git project, a Git repository. And once this is done, then I'll be able to save changes periodically. And the neat thing about this is when you're working with Claude, then you can, again, just human language. If you make changes and you've been committing along the way, then you can say, oh, no, I don't like this. Go back to when it looked like this.
Yeah.
And as long as it's leaving good commit messages, it'll be able to get you back there.
I've done it where like it doesn't have to be like a super enterprise environment. You're like, go back to version 1 point, you know. You can literally just be like, I want to go back to the version that we had yesterday morning or like Monday morning. and as long as it's keeping those messages, it goes, oh, okay, I know what to go back to. So that allows for some of that version control. I'd also say, like, obviously what we're showing here is a pretty dramatic update. With some of the smaller iterative changes that you can use it to make to your site, a lot of those can just kind of be like, hey, you know what, go back, change that back. I didn't like that, undo that. Yeah. And it's pretty solid at understanding that. But I think that's a really important question. I am, however, going to hold you accountable because we promised no like jargon and terms. So vibe coding. Do you want to define?
That's not jargon. Everybody knows. So vibe coding, if you don't know what it is, it's like using AI tools to create code, to create things that are built on code. There are tools like Lovable or AWeber's upcoming web form builder and email builders that let you create code artifacts like great looking emails or forms, or in this case, a landing page without knowing how to code. Yeah. So that's vibe coding. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't know that. I think I am just so much in this space.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it's a good opportunity to call it out anyway. But yeah, writing code conversationally using AI tools, right? Without necessarily knowing how to write that exact code.
So I see a really good question about a Drupal site on an older version of Drupal. I'm going to guess that the answer to this is yes. So if you create a Claude Design artifact and you give it to, like a Claude Design update to your website, and you give it to your programmer, if you still want to work with that programmer, they'll be able to take that prompt that I gave you and use it in the repository where they're making the changes. So they'll just be able to say, like, take that, copy paste it, give it some direction that I'm sure they'll be able to give it an understanding of the project. But then the magical thing about Claude Code that makes it so awesome, why everybody really loves using it, is it's really good at understanding what a code base means. So my code base is only 2 files. It's an HTML file and a CSS file. But at AWeber, we use Claude Code in our app, which is thousands of files across a ton of different repositories. And it's able to understand what things do and how to make changes to make something that looks one way or functions one way look or function another way. So I'm going to say pretty confidently, I bet that you'll be able to create something in Claude Design, give it to your developer, and they'll be able to implement it using Claude Code.
Yeah. And I think it's probably worth covering on a future one too, because there is an alternative that I think is maybe a little bit even more user-friendly, and that's Lovable, that you've mentioned already. That is a direct competitor to this Claude Design release. I think that we've already seen that I think Claude Design is able to do more expansive range of design. Lovable tends to have like a lovable feel,
Yeah.
and you have to kind of talk it away from it sometimes.
It's funny that you mentioned that, though.
It is a little bit more user-friendly end-to-end, where like you can connect, like one click connected to your domain, one click publish. So you're not getting into like the Claude Code handoff, but you are a little bit, I would say, like a little bit limited.
Yeah, so like that was actually way back like 8 minutes ago when I was like, there are 2 ways you can do this. One of them was Git. The other one is to use a tool like Lovable. And a really neat thing, I should have this pulled up. I don't, it's on my personal Lovable, but I tried creating a design in Claude Code and then sharing the design, just a screenshot of it with Lovable, and it did a fantastic job of getting the Claude Design designed thing created in Lovable. And Lovable has
like, I don't want to get into the Claude Code and Git side of this. You can still get a better design out of Claude Design and then hand that off to Lovable.
Yes.
I love that. So using Claude Design to better train Lovable on more robust design, maybe.
I don't
Michael,
know about you.
Sorry. No.
Like I do that all the time. I'm constantly bouncing between different
for sure
tools, you know.
Or I'll just like straight up put them head to head with like similar prompts and figure out which one's going to be my best path forward based on that first result. Michael asked, and I know we talked about this earlier, but I know, it's worth mentioning and kind of use this to work within a Wix site. Sites like Wix and Squarespace, WordPress.com versus like the WordPress platform are pretty locked down. And I don't imagine would be able to, I don't think you can get to your code base in those, right? As far as I understand.
No, like Wix has their own website design thing, and I don't know if maybe the trouble with them with the drag and drop builders like that is most drag and drop builders rely on this technical structure behind the scenes that makes it really hard to like randomly edit HTML, or like whatever files compile to HTML, which is what tools like Claude Code and Lovable do. So I'd be really surprised actually if you can use this same process in Wix, but it's actually pretty cool that like what I hope that we're showing you here is that either in locally with Claude Code or with a tool like Lovable, you might not need Wix anymore because you can do so much of this conversationally. Like with the form tool at AWeber that we're building, we don't want you to have to pay for external form tools to do like a certain type of form. Instead, we're building a builder like this that lets you just conversationally build and then manually tweak if you want to, but to make any type of form that you want. And like some tools are going to be less necessary than they were in the past. And like, I really think that most people watching, you can do changes to static websites like my personal speaking website yourself with the help of tools like Claude Code. And we're here to answer your questions when you have them. Please send them to us so we can answer them in the future.
Yeah, aweber.com/shift, and right at the top right corner, there's a big white button. Send us your questions, and like that's where we get these questions that we answer on air in the mailbag. We want to be as useful as we honestly can. And Michael said, I got it in a 1-year deal with Wix. That's fair. And if it's doing its job for you, then maybe you ride that 1-year deal out.
Yeah.
And if you're just really dissatisfied with the site that it has, then you probably just have to weigh if it's like worth moving on from that. The way I would approach that moving forward, and Lynn kind of hit on it actually, is like, if web designers use these tools, they would have a business. As somebody who used to do freelance web design and design, so often like a friend or somebody close, if I wasn't really doing freelance anymore, I'd be like, hey, could you help me with this site? And it's like, yeah. But it becomes like really laborious and cumbersome. And you're like, oh man, what did I say yes to? I've been helping a bunch of friends, one running for office, one starting a content project, my wife's portfolio page for her career, and using Lovable. And for another one using Claude Design and Claude Code. And it's amazing how fast you can produce such a beautiful result and be so efficient. So you're not wrong at all there. Another Michael asked, I have Claude Pro. I'm confused about the difference in Claude Code and Claude Design and Claude Pro. Please explain. So Claude Pro is the plan that you have. That's the plan tier that you're paying for.
Yes.
And within Claude Pro, you have two different tools, and maybe you can show it directly, Chris. But one of those tools is Claude Design.
Yes.
Recently released.
So think of regular Claude chat as where you'd create like a new chat as your just like generic conversational assistant, where you can ask it questions or tell it things or ask it to create content, and it'll do that. But in the sidebar, you have tools like Claude Design, which we just walked through today, which is for designing mockups right now. But I have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to make it really easy to just design and deploy sites from Claude eventually. But you also have Claude Code. And the way Claude Code works is it connects. It looks like
we're still on the chat, just so you know.
Yeah. I actually don't have this. I'm going to set up apps later. So the way that this works is you connect it to your GitHub, which I don't have on my work account. I do on my personal account, because the way Claude Code works on the web is it connects to a GitHub repository, which again, once you've set up your local file as a Git repository, which we walked through a little earlier, just ask Claude how to get it on GitHub. And then the awesome thing about this is once you have Claude Code in your Claude account connected to GitHub, you can point it at any of your project repositories. So let's say you have a personal website and an event website, and there are two different projects with two different domains. You can point Claude Code at your personal website and say, hey, I want you to make these changes, all from the web or from the Claude app, and it'll make the changes for you. And this is a really awesome experience. Like I have a little app that lets you run surveys in email that I use for an email newsletter I write called Would You Rather. And as I was on vacation, I wanted to make some changes to the survey app. And while I was on the plane Wi-Fi, I had Claude Code open on my phone, and I was just asking for changes. It would make the changes, tell me it was done, I'd merge it in, and then I would just look at my site on my phone, and it would be there, updated on the internet. It's really a wild experience.
I was coaching my son's softball team last week, and a friend who I did a Lovable site for, who's running for office, one of their campaign people emailed me and just said, hey, we've got these 3 event flyers. Can we get them on the website? And I opened Lovable on my phone while the game's going on, pasted the flyers into the chat and just said, please add these to the event section. It not just added them, but it like derived all of the event information and added the copy below, as well as like a button to RSVP, and published. And I mean, like, I'm talking in like 3 minutes while I'm still, like we hadn't even, the next batter wasn't even up yet. Like that's the insane shift of what this is. That would have been like, oh, I've got to go find time to do this. Or as a business owner, the person who needs that update, it might've been, I've got to go get my external resource to help me with this. And now it's minutes.
Yeah, this is I know I said this earlier, but one of the coolest things about this is that I had an AWeber form on this page already. So when it created the updated page, like I'm looking at the actual code. This is an actual AWeber working form, and I didn't have to do anything to make sure that it got translated well. It looks very different. It's very cool.
On the back end from your existing site.
Yes, yeah, it's awesome.
Anything else before we move to the mailbag?
No, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for the questions, folks, and I cannot wait to. I'm honestly gonna publish this change.
I love it
at the end of the day.